I've been with CodePink for 3 or 4 years. I forget when, actually. And I just have been, I was enticed to join them because they are so fanciful and fun and creative and bright and very passionate. Unable to contain their passion for ending this war and bringing civil liberties and rights to people all over the world. The people that are in D.C. right now, involved with CodePink, are unable to stay at their house. They're so moved to be active that they've quit their jobs. They're living on savings. These are very professional women: doctors, lawyers, engineers, physical therapists, massage therapists, people that are just so driven to do something, and they're from all over the country. So CodePink put out a call this summer: come join us in the fall when Congress reconvenes, because they're going to be voting on another $200 billion, which we probably all know about, and we're there to tell them, no, you're not going to be putting one more dollar into war. And so we are making, it's been called an occupation actually all year. You know, we are occupying Iraq, CodePink is occupying Congress, and they occupy it in a big way. What they've done is they've rented a house, and it's a dormitory-like house. It's a townhouse, and this past week there were 30 people there. Or what we do is at night we figure out what the action is for the next day, and like Medea Benjamin said, as you can tell, we fly by the seat of our pants, because you don't really know what's going to be on, you know, for the next, what's going on in Congress, you know. So you get this one, and it's a daily CQ today, and it tells you which hearings are where in Congress. What we do is we figure out, okay, this is the plan for tomorrow. Okay, who wants to do which part of the action? And it could be somebody's going to be doing the jailbird watch. If somebody gets in jail, they're on call. It could be somebody doing the media, who's in charge of the camera, who's in charge of calling ahead to put out the press release. So what we do is we decide which hearing we might be going to, which is usually, that's the standard, and then we call, and they have a list of press release, and you call and you say, there's going to be an action in Senate Chamber 3127, and CodePink's going to be there, and it's going to be really lively, and you guys are going to want to be there because it's, and you know, 10 or 15 of us will then go like this, only you can't wear these. We went into the Iraq strategy group hearing, and we would go in, and at certain times, depending on who was speaking, if we disagreed and we felt drawn to get up and say something and be escorted out, that could happen. Usually we would do a planned action. Like one time there was, okay, at 1 o'clock we're going to don our hats, and this was actually in the FISA, where they were trying to figure out, well, do they want to do more surveillance on us, and do they want to document, you know, who you're sitting next to in the planes and what book you're reading, and you know, they were just building this up more and more. And so we all had glasses like this, only we had some of those really big ones too. And at 1 o'clock, and we actually had half of the hearing room, about 30 of us stood up and marched out, and we had a chant planned and certain songs planned, and went out, and I had a sign, I think, that said, "Big Sister's watching you," and I was holding it in front of all of them. And everybody had, you know, whatever they were drawn to do. And then one woman who reads the Constitution a lot, and that's what she likes to do. And so she was the last one out, and she was standing in front of them reading the Constitution. You definitely get escorted out right away. They'll give you 3 warnings. If you want to be arrested, you could. You could stay in there, and they'll give you the one, okay, you got 1 warning. You know, and so you choose where you might want to be arrested. We basically wanted this to be documented on C-SPAN. We wanted the American people to know that we were contesting, you know, FISA's consideration. Everyone's like, no. The one interesting thing I want to say after one of these, Ambassador Holbrooke, I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with him. He's been an ambassador and worked with Middle East issues since Reagan and Nixon, and he came up to us afterwards. We did not interrupt him because he was mostly telling historically what had gone on in the Mideast, and he didn't really say anything for us to talk about. But he came up to us afterwards and said, "Thank you for not interrupting me." he said, but you know, you might want to reconsider your tactics. And I said, well, now what do you think would be more appropriate? How could we be more effective? And he said, well, maybe you should call your congressperson. That is how a lot of people do view us, that we're these manic housewives that just don't know, have anything else better to do or something. You know. Colonel Ann Wright, is everybody familiar with her? She's a retired colonel now, and she's very active with CodePink. She was in the house the whole time I was there, and she chose to get arrested, but she's very supportive of the troops and very wise. Every night and every morning she's going through the papers and circling issues that she's going to talk about. She took off 2 or 3 times to go up to New York to speak, and she goes up to Canada. She goes all over to speak. She's very inspiring.
It is just so wonderful when the people who have been there and been going through it come back and say it's not working, and the troops over there would really appreciate it if you bring us home.
Having the troops there that were very outspoken, who had, you know, the Iraqi veterans against the war, and one young man the last day I was there, he said, you know, I love the Army, but I can't support this mission. Each day we did different actions. The Hall of Shame is to those who were the worst members of Congress. And so we would go around and we gave them, this is a certificate into the Hall of Shame. And we had about 150 people in the halls. And another one, and then we went down and to have lunch down in, you know, the regular lunchroom where you really see, that's where you really see the reps. And, you know, when there was 40 people in pink, we took up half of the cafeteria, and we were singing songs and chanting, because you can't chant in the halls. And the cops were following us everywhere with their, you know, with their little plastic straps, kind of trying to intimidate you, you know. When you're down in the tunnel, or when you go through the stairwells, we would always break into song. So then we go down and we have lunch, and what CodePink does, and they do this day in and day out, is they're going through the halls, you know, and they move through the halls. There's one woman who's 6'2", and I followed her one day, and I was just traveling behind her. But the reps have a little red pin here, so you know who they are, because the red pin, there's 400, I don't know how many of them, 450 or, you know. But they're, say hi, low, what did you do for peace today? And they don't let go of his hand. And they're like, and what did you vote on, HR 333? Are you supporting Mr. Kucinich's? And what do you think about that Webb amendment? And they got their spiel down, and they
get in their face.
They are in their face, and by the end of the week I was there, the reps are kind of just like, they can't get in the elevator fast enough. And they really try to avoid you. And the CodePink with me, they live, breathe, you know, sleep, drink this information, so they're much more, you know, I'm there going, oh, but they have it down, you know, I mean, that's what they study at night, that's when, you know, they're on the computer, they're constant, so they've really got their rap down, and they do it day in and day out. But by the end of the week, I was all over reps too, and you don't know who they are, necessarily. Some of them we did, like Hunter. Hunter was one of the bad ones.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, this was his response, he said, well, have you seen those pictures of the Kurds that gassed, or that were gassed? That's, you know, and we're like, well.
How many years ago?
Yeah, and I said, well, who sold them that